Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the REV1 from Pioneer DJ, a new budget all-in-one controller for Serato DJ Lite and Serato DJ Pro. I kind of feel a bit sorry for this thing at the time of launch because it's dropping on the same day as the all-singing, all-dancing, spinning platter REV7, which is going to get all of the headlines, all of the hype, but I do really think the REV1 is also quite important. Let's discuss why. The DDJ-REV1 is firmly in the entry-level category of controllers when it comes to pricing, with a street price of around $260 in the US. This places it as pretty much a replacement for the DDJ-SB3, Pioneer DJ's previous budget Serato offering in their lineup. I'll say right out of the gate that I think the REV1 is far superior to the SB3. It's bigger, at around 21 inches wide, with larger jog wheels, and I never liked the super short pitch sliders on that model. They're significantly longer on here, which really helps with accuracy when manually mixing. What's really interesting is how the REV1 sits alongside the REV7 as part of a new series, one which I expect will grow over time. As you can see by the placement of the pitch sliders and play-pause buttons, both devices are clearly aimed at open format DJs and have layouts that are more akin to turntables positioned battle style with a scratch mixer as opposed to CDJs and a club mixer. The addition of the effects activation paddles, which lock on when pushed away from you and spring back when pulled forward, also point to this. They were first seen on the DJM-S9 a few years ago and have become a standard feature on Pioneer DJ's battle mixers ever since. The fact that the REV1 is strictly for Serato software is worth noting, but not especially notable. For many years at lower price points, Pioneer DJ have offered different controllers for Serato and Rekordbox, so this is nothing new. Whether we'll see a Rekordbox equivalent of the REV1 in the future or not, I don't know, but I'm inclined to think that the REV series will remain Serato focused. In terms of construction, the REV1 is what you would expect at this price, all plastic but sturdy enough with a solid feeling to the build. It is purely a controller with no standalone mixer functionality, and so the connectivity reflects that, with a single unbalanced stereo RCA output, an 1/8" headphone jack, and a 1/4" unbalanced mic jack. A nice little touch is that the mic is routed through the software, so if you're using the REV1 for live streaming, you don't need any external hardware to get your mic into the stream audio. That hasn't been the case with older Pioneer DJ controllers at this level before. The unit is USB bus powered, so there's no need for an external power supply, and the sound quality the REV1 puts out is perfectly respectable, with a decent amount of headroom. All in all, there are no big surprises here considering the price point, but also no disappointments. For the money, the hardware is spot on. So I'm going to talk you through the basic features on here, all the stuff that we have on this top panel to use. Starting with the deck sections, we have a small Q button, that is your temp Q. So you can set a temp Q wherever you like and go from there. Then we have the play pause button. These are, as you can hear, clicky buttons, but they have a nice enough feel to them, no complaints. The jog wheels themselves, very nice in terms of how they feel. They've got, for me, that kind of perfect amount of resistance where you've got enough, you can do like a spin back. We've also got a track search on the side if we hold shift. But yeah, you can give it a good kind of spin back, but also they're not so loose that you feel like they're out of control when you're trying to scratch with them. I think they're absolutely weighted perfectly. And for pitch bending as well, feel very nice. Yeah, I've really got no complaints about these jog wheels at this kind of price at all. Moving on up, we do have the ability to swap between decks 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 with these buttons up here. Now, I'm not a fan of this. I just don't like the idea that now we've got, you can see this whole side is now gone blank because there's no track loaded. And I just don't like this layering of controls. For me, this would get very confusing very quickly. There may be occasions when you want to do it. Maybe you've started out learning on this and you're getting a bit more advanced and you want to do some 3-deck stuff or something like that. I get it, and I would be fine with that. But for me, it's never something I'm going to use, because for me, this is terrifying. The fact that we've got this here, I've got a track playing. The only thing I can do with that track is cut it off with the crossfader. There's nothing else I can do, whatever I do on these controls, until I switch back to deck 1. And just for me, it doesn't work. I'm not a fan of this layered 3 and 4 deck thing. As I say, if you find it useful, great. But me as a DJ, I'm never going to be into that at all. You can also do the tempo range, hold shift and push that button to change the tempo range. Up here we have the Q level for your headphones. And the controls for that are down in the middle here in the mixer section. We can choose between the master, deck 1 and deck 2 at the same time. So you can have both at the same time or just one. There is no split queue available in the software options. I have looked for that, it's not there, which might be a disappointment to some beginners, but it's not the end of the world. You know, there's plenty of gear that doesn't have split queue. I'd always prefer to see it. I'd rather have it there than not. Then we have our loop controls. We can halve and double. Now in Serato DJ Lite, you do only have 4, 8, 1 and 2. That is your option, so you can't go any wider than that or more narrow than that, but that's pretty much the standard loop lengths that you're going to need. Then we have a reloop and exit as well, so I can hold and then reloop my last loop, etc. In and out points for a manual loop. Then above that we have the pitch slider. I like the positioning of it. It's out of the way. It's not, you know, going to clash with any other bits of the layout, and it's not a bad length. It's not a full length, you know, what we'd call a full length pitch fader like a Technics 1200 or a CDJ, but it's got a pretty reasonable amount of accuracy to it. You can certainly go through at 1/10 of a BPM without too much fuss. It's got a little click at 0. And overall, yeah, I'm not averse to this pitch slider at all. It feels, you know, a nice resistance again. There are certainly a lot shorter pitch sliders than this that I've seen on hardware in the past, and this one, yeah, it's good enough, does the job very nicely. We've got trim control for each channel. Then we have a filter, high pass and low pass. This is a software effect, of course. Everything in here is just controlling the software. This is a controller, it's not a standalone device or mixer in any way. We've got just a nice Serato DJ Pro or DJ Lite filter. We have high, mid and low EQ with a full kill. So when you take out the frequencies, it's just gone. For those smooth blends. Then we move to the effects section. We have the typical Serato DJ Lite effects. So we've got one, there's a low pass filter. And you can choose different effects. You can actually select the first one on the fly with the controller itself, holding down to put reverb there on number 1. And you can change the beat length, the beat division, by holding shift and pushing these two. And the depth of the effects on the central knob. Up above we have the browse knob, so you can go between your different crates and back and forth, and you can load. Got a dedicated load button for each deck there, left and right. Same thing with the effects over here. Same thing with the entire right hand side is exactly the same, apart from you've got your master level for your RCA outputs over there on the right. Now we move to the mixer section. The faders, yeah, okay, they're cheap faders, but there's a pretty good cut-in distance on the fader, and it is sharp. You know, you set it in the Serato DJ Pro software. It's not a turntablist weapon, but it's good enough. If you're just trying to get into some scratching, which is quite good, as there are quite a number of features on here which would lean, you know, perhaps make you want to lean towards learning a bit of scratching, but some of that we'll get to in a minute. Then, so we get to the pad modes, right? These pads are, again, they've got that kind of clickiness, but they have got a bit of travel there. They don't feel, they're not like hard, like the play pause button. They do have a nice bit of travel to them, and they've got a nice feel. I definitely like that. On this one we have hot cues, so we've got 4 hot cues in Serato DJ Lite, and below that we have transport controls. So we have, you can fast forward, rewind, go back, and the last one is like a stutter play. So as you're going on, kind of does a sensor kind of thing. As you sensor control there on that last pad, and that's the same for many of these modes, because Serato DJ Lite only has really 4 pads in its design. The one below is often this kind of transport mode, which could come in handy, absolutely. So below that we've got shift and press the second pad mode. Now that's for beat jump, which is not available in Serato DJ Lite. So that one is marked on there. You can't use that in the base software. Then we go over to auto loop, and this is similar to the looping up here. You've got 1, 2, 4, and 8. And on that one again below, we have the transport controls. Then on the shift one there is roll, and again, that's not available in Serato DJ Lite. So that function, you can't use that marked one there. Then we get to tracking, and we'll talk about that kind of separately in a minute. We'll do a little separate clip about that. Then we've got transform, which does work in Serato DJ Lite. A few different kind of patterns, and there's like a mute on the end. So that one's a bit odd in that one does use 8 pads, but it's great to have that option to use the 8 pads in Serato DJ Lite. Then we move over, we've got the sampler. So you can drop your samples that are loaded into your sampler inside the software. And then on the shift function there, we have Scratch Bank. Now this, we've not seen Scratch Bank in Serato DJ Lite. It was been in Serato DJ Pro for a minute, but Serato DJ Lite, no, we've not seen this before. So this is pretty cool to now have this inside the software. You, again, shift and the pad mode, and that's now put us into Scratch Bank. So I just hit my 4, and you've only got 4 slots. And you have less choices within the Scratch Bank. You have less options. So if I go over to the computer, you can't open and expand and decide what you're going to do with them. So it's always going to be the first cue point as far as I can see. But just to have that there, and they provide you with 4 scratch samples, which are like copyright-free ones that Serato have done themselves, and they sound pretty good. You've got the different kind of scratch sounds. Yeah. Hey, you! And then to get out of that, like you do with Scratch Bank in Serato DJ Pro, you just hold shift and hit one of those pads again, and you're back to the track where it was playing. Absolutely, I love the fact that's come to Serato DJ Lite. I think it is probably coming to other Serato DJ Lite hardware as well, but it is great to see it here on the REV1. Absolutely superb, really nice feature. The tracking scratch feature on the DDJ-REV1 is not entirely unique. We've seen similar ideas before, not least from Pioneer DJ themselves. It is, in effect, a kind of auto scratch mode, but it's not some kind of magic bullet. You still need to move the jog wheel with some kind of rhythm to get a good sound out of it. When activated, it pauses the track at your last cue point, and then as you move the platter, it plays back from that point, cutting the sound in and out as it goes. There are 6 different patterns to choose from a simple forward stab to much more complex maneuvers, all of which are tied to the BPM of the track playing on the other deck. Whilst this feature could certainly be used as a way to cheat scratch, I also do think it has a lot of potential as a training tool, a way for beginners to not only learn the right movements and timing with their jog wheel hand, but also to do a kind of call and response session with yourself, where you try and recreate the cuts heard in each pattern. It's far more useful than the jog cutter on the FLX6, for example, which really was just a bit of a gimmick. Ultimately, I doubt that tracking scratch will be a huge selling point for the REV1 over other hardware in this price bracket, but like everything else on the unit, it does what it sets out to do, and it does it well. Budget controllers are a hugely important part of the DJ technology ecosystem. Back in my day, we started out with a pair of belt drive turntables and a 2-channel mixer. These days, if you want to get into DJing, then a device like the REV1 will be what you turn to, and you won't be disappointed with a product like this. It's got enough control on there, it feels good, it's spacious and comfortable, and it will get you into the Serato ecosystem, beginning with Serato DJ Lite, and of course you can upgrade to Serato DJ Pro further on down the line. Now, this is not just for beginners. It's got enough features on there that it would be comfortable to use for an intermediate or even a professional DJ. Of course, there are limitations when it comes to the connectivity, but for just playing around at home or on the move, yeah, sure, it's going to serve that kind of DJ very well also. The big thing here is that this does indicate that REV is a series. Now, we've got the REV1 at the low end, we've got the REV7 at the top end, which suggests to me that we might see something in between. There are a lot of numbers between 1 and 7 for Pioneer DJ to potentially fill out. So it's very exciting from that point of view. I do appreciate the consistency of having the battle style pitch faders, etc. Overall, if you're looking for a beginner controller or just something that is quite affordable to get you into DJing, then the REV1 will serve you very well indeed. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do make sure you subscribe to the channel and you give us a thumbs up down below, as that helps YouTube know that you've enjoyed the video. Also, let us know in the comments, are you a beginner DJ? Do you think the REV1 is going to be the device to kick off your DJ career? And if you're an older, seasoned head like me, let us know what kind of equipment you were using when you first started out, because I bet there'll be some really interesting answers in there. I'll see you next time.